What if a single trade deal decides the future of jobs from Windsor to Kanata, and whether Chinese electric vehicles flood our market? That's the tug-of-war playing out this week, and it lands right on Ottawa's doorstep. It's Friday, January 16th. Quick Ottawa weather to start. A high of -9 and a low of -21 degrees Celsius, with snow. If you're planning the weekend, Michael Bublé croons at the Canadian Tire Centre. The BON Market pops up at the National Arts Centre with local makers and bites, and the Ottawa Senators are at home. Perfect combo if you want to shop, sing along, and then scream at the refs. Now to the big story that could shape paychecks and prices across the region. The future of CUSMA, also known as USMCA in the U.S. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is urging an extension of the deal, saying it's essential to keep North American auto production competitive. She warns that walking away would hand an advantage to China, which is racing ahead with a vertically integrated auto juggernaut, from mining and batteries to assembly and distribution. That sets the stage for an unusually tense cross-border debate. Former President Donald Trump has called the agreement irrelevant and previously slapped 25% tariffs on autos from Canada and Mexico. Mexico's economy minister Marcelo Ebrard says the pact remains solid and expects the three countries to close an extension deal. But the timeline is tight. The formal review trigger date is July 1st, and analysts think talks could stretch into 2026. Here's the Ottawa angle. Our capital is the federal decision-making hub and a growing node in auto tech. Whether it's EV batteries, sensors, or software, this region's supply chain is knitted to Windsor, Detroit, and beyond. Pull the CUSMA thread too hard, and you don't just jolt assembly lines. You shake the incentives for future investment in EVs, AI-enabled safety systems, and smart manufacturing tools that companies in and around Ottawa increasingly work on. That brings us to Prime Minister Mark Carney's high-stakes trade push. He's trying to rebalance Canada's exposure by reopening doors in India and China. In Beijing, Canada's first prime ministerial visit in nearly a decade, Carney announced energy cooperation and a preliminary trade understanding that would allow Chinese electric vehicles into Canada in exchange for lower duties on Canadian canola. He and President Xi Jinping agreed to chip away at long-standing trade irritants as part of a strategic partnership. None of that settles the tariff fights overnight. China still has duties on Canadian agricultural products, and Canada's measures on Chinese EVs, steel, and aluminum remain friction points. But it's movement. Not everyone's on board. Ontario Premier Doug Ford opposes lowering tariffs on Chinese EVs, warning it could cost jobs here and in the U.S. That tension matters. Ottawa's policy choices will have to balance consumer prices and climate goals with industrial security. Cheaper EVs help decarbonize transport, but if the supply chain shifts offshore, battery plants, machine learning talent, robotics, Canada loses the higher value work that powers middle-class wages. Meanwhile, Canada and China separately inked non-binding agreements aimed at boosting trade, including a BC Memorandum of Understanding on modern wood construction. It's about growing demand for Canadian lumber in China's urban renewal and rural revitalization projects. Still, the tariff cloud hangs over all of it. Both sides are talking, but there's no concrete breakthrough yet. On the environment file at home, Ottawa has hit pause on the federal single-use plastics ban that was supposed to roll out. The government quietly suspended implementation. Dalhousie University's Tony Walker provides context on the decision, but the bottom line is the same. If Canada wants to cut plastic pollution, we need a mix of bans that stick, clear alternatives for businesses, and recycling systems that actually work. A pause may avoid short-term disruption, but it risks backsliding unless a stronger plan is ready. A quick look at justice news across Ontario. In Toronto, jurors are deliberating in the case of Christopher Lucas, 27, charged with the murders of Juliana Panunzio and Christine Crooks, after testimony from 28 witnesses. In Leamington, Kevin Goodings, 62, was sentenced to life with no parole for 12 years after pleading guilty to killing his mother. The judge cited the nature of the crime and his record as aggravating factors. And in Chelmsford, Jesse Brave received 4.5 years for aggravated assault in a stabbing that left a neighbor with lasting injuries. Travel is in flux for many Canadians eyeing winter getaways. After recent U.S. military action in Venezuela and new threats rattling regional stability, Agencies are reporting a drop in interest for Aruba and Curacao, sites in the orbit of that crisis. Some travelers are pivoting to Mexico, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic. Cuba's also seeing a dip, with would-be visitors citing power blackouts, shortages, and political tensions heightened by statements from President Trump. If you're booking from Ottawa, it's smart to double-check advisory and insurance fine print. Back to politics at home. A pair of high-profile resignations signals change. Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie has stepped down effective immediately after drawing 57% in a party leadership vote and opting for an early exit to let renewal begin. Potential successors mentioned include MP Nate Erskine-Smith and Ontario Liberals Lee Fairclough and Rob Serjonic. In Quebec, Premier François Legault says he'll resign as CAQ leader and remain until a successor is chosen, following turbulence over healthcare policy and sliding poll numbers. Opposition leaders acknowledged his service, even as they pressed their critiques. With Quebec elections looming in the fall, the race to redefine priorities, especially on healthcare, begins now. Hockey note for fans. The Boston Bruins will retire Zdeno Chara's number 33, ahead of their game against the Seattle Kraken. Ottawa fans know what it's like to face him on the blue line. Tonight, it's about the legacy. And for you here at home, the Senators' tilt this weekend adds some spice to an already busy city calendar. One more thread tying it all together. The auto and EV story is as much about software and climate as steel and tariffs. The next generation of vehicles is rolling computers, driver assist systems, battery management, predictive maintenance, powered by AI. If CUSMA holds and the China file softens, investment follows. If it all fractures, Canada risks being only a customer, not a builder. Ottawa, home to regulators, researchers, and rising clean tech firms, has a chance to help shape rules that cut emissions, keep supply chains secure, and ensure the transition pays real wages. The quick recap for your day in Ottawa. Snow, with a high of -9 and a low of -21 degrees Celsius. Bublé at the CTC, the bond market at the NAC, and the Sens at home. On the national stage, trade talks are hot, even as the temperature drops. Keep an eye on CUSMA and the China file. Both will ripple through prices, paychecks, and climate progress. That's it for today. If you found this useful, share it with a neighbor or someone who needs a nudge to grab last-minute tickets. Stay warm out there.